All right. And we are live. And we've got one person in the chat, the first and only person in the chat, none better than DM. DM, thank you for joining us, man. Super happy to have you here. It's always an honor when you are able to join the chat with us. And I appreciate you sending me out the that email. Hit me up with some good Rutgers information. Hopefully, like you said, I don't have to suffer along with you guys, the Rutgers fans, but I will choose to. I will choose to support the Scarlet Knights and hope that maybe Chris Ash can save his job and do better than some will expect at Rutgers in 2019. So thank you for joining the chat. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for reaching out through all the emails and everything like that and all your support. One of the best out there. That comment, I really do appreciate that. So thank you. Thank you very much. But your support, some of the best, it means a lot to me personally. Trey Drew, it has been a while. Glad to have you on the chat with us too, man. Glad we're getting a couple of people trickling in now. So I'm glad to have it. But Trey, hope you're doing well. And I know it's been a while, but we're back. And like I said, if you watched saw our tweet, if you saw our post that we did here on YouTube, you know that I said since football's back, our live streams are back. So we are going to have a definite date for these live streams and a definite time coming out very soon. This isn't going to be the official yet. We haven't put it all set in stone, but we'll have one coming out so you know exactly when to find us, where to find us, and everything like that. McD Sports 4, what's going on, sir? Happy to have you here. It's been a while from you too. So happy you were able to join us. And Ryan McCormick, glad you were able to join the chat as well. Glad you're able to get your access back to your account so you can start commenting and jumping on the chat with us. So glad you're here as well. Trey just had your first game against Samford. So Youngstown State, right? Isn't that correct? Didn't Youngstown State face off against Samford? So that's what we like to hear, though. I think that Youngstown State put a beating on them, but that's what we like to hear. Who else we got on there? Yep, that's what I thought. Awesome. John Hopkins, good to have you here as well. Always happy when you're able to join the chat. You're finally able to join this one. I know you've missed a couple every now and then because the times are always so sporadic. You and George, I know, are usually comment a little while after sometimes, like, oh, I missed it. But we're glad you guys were able to join on today. Deep Barat, good morning. I'm doing well. How am I doing this on a weekday? We did during the weekdays in the summer, and now we're at school. Obviously, we have to play around that schedule, but that's why this live stream is only going to go for about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, is because we do have a lot of other stuff that we've got to take care of this week regarding classwork and regarding a lot of stuff that we have coming out for you guys in the next few days. And we'll touch on that in a second before we jump into the calls. But glad to see everybody's doing well. Mike Myrick, good to have you, man. I'm doing great. Go Noles. Big game against Boise State this Saturday night. That's going to be a blast, but I'm glad you're able to join us here today. Super pumped. And 50-51 brothers. Do I really think Michigan is going to win over an underrated Notre Dame team and a loaded Ohio State team? Yes. And we'll jump on that in a second. You can call in if you want. We can discuss that, but absolutely. Trey, I'm taking 17 hours this semester. Well over, way more than 30 last year. So I'm a sophomore. And Deep Barat, I am at Arkansas State, so up in Jonesboro, Arkansas. So as Clayton can attest, down there in the comments, go Red Wolves, #beat SMU. The Red Wolves have a big game against SMU this Saturday, and of course going to be a very emotional game as well, since Blake Anderson, the head coach for the Red Wolves, his wife just passed away. So a very emotional game, way to kick off this season. He's obviously going to be taking a little bit of a leave of absence. Won't be coaching in the SMU game, but still one to keep an eye on. It was a very, very, very sad day across the campus when that happened early last week. And finally, Emperor of Rome, super pumped to have you as well. It's been a while since I've heard from you too. I saw you comment on a couple videos, but it's been a while since you were able to hop on a live stream. So super pumped to have you here. Always glad when you're here. Always glad when DM's here, Comic Dude 45, and everybody else that we've got on this group right now. Super pumped to have you on. So real quick, before we give you the number, before we start taking some of your calls, a couple of things to take care of, a couple of business things to take care of. If you have signed up for our newsletter, you saw that we put out a weekly schedule. We put out the schedule for this upcoming week. And we've got a lot coming at you these next couple days. So today we sent out our second newsletter. You still have time to sign up for that. You can sign up for that whenever you want. and we'll add you to the list, and you'll get all of our weekly newsletters for the entire college football season. And I'm sure some of you have received that. I hope you are enjoying those. Put a lot of work, thought, time into those, and I think they're working pretty well. But if you saw that, our weekly schedule is coming up, and I've got it right here next to me. Tomorrow, our first expert picks are released. So if you haven't signed up for those, you might want to go ahead and do that, because our first spread picks for week 1 will be released on our website tomorrow. But of course, if you wait until week 2 or week 3 to sign up for the expert picks, that's fine. It's a year-long subscription, so you'll get the benefit from all of our spread picks from the rest of 2019 and then a couple weeks into 2020. So our first expert picks come out tomorrow, as well as an analysis on the Holy War. Thursday night, huge game between Utah and BYU, and we're going to have an in-depth analysis on that game, kind of like we did a couple days ago with the Miami and Florida game, kind of breaking that down into deeper detail. We're going to break that down between Utah and BYU, so you're not going to want to miss out on that. The next day, so that's going to be Thursday, the 29th, the day college football kicks off officially, all the big games. We're going to have our week 1 predictions coming out. If you remember how we've done it the past couple of years, we're going to have our biggest games up there on the big board. We haven't used the whiteboard in a while. We're going to have all those games up there. We're going to kind of tell you who we think is going to win those games, give you some analysis on that. And then on Friday, we are going to have our game of the week analysis. And that is something that we're going to be doing different this year. Every single week, we are going to take the biggest game of the week. Maybe it's the one that has the biggest implications conference-wise or college football playoff-wise. Maybe it's the biggest ranked versus ranked matchup you have. Regardless of what it is, we're going to take the biggest and most exciting game that we think will happen that Saturday, put that up on the big board, and we're going to give you an in-depth analysis on that game. Now, that game will still be in our week-by-week predictions that we do up here, but this one's going to give you a little bit more detail. So Friday will be our game of the week analysis. I'm not going to announce who it is yet, but I'm sure most of you guys can figure that out for week 1. But you're not going to want to miss any of that. We'll take a day off, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Everybody's going to be watching football. I'm going to be watching football. You guys will be doing that. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend. And then next Tuesday, we'll do our week 1 recap and then really hit the ground running for the rest of the season. So that's kind of our schedule tentatively for this next week, exactly a week. And I'm sure all of you guys are going to enjoy that. I know I'm already getting excited for it. So running through the rest of the comments here before we jump into the calls. Emperor Rome, man, I'm sorry to hear that about your family. Stomach bug, you're better now. Well, that's good. That's good. That, man, I tell you what, that's tough, man. When you've got someone gets it and another family member gets it, I'm sure we've all been there at some point where the entire household's down and you're sick. And even when you're sick, you're trying to take care of other people. It's just it's very hectic. So I'm sorry you've been having to deal with that, but I'm glad you guys are doing better. Ryan McCormick, we'll take your call here in a little bit if you've got anything that you want to address. Obviously, a bunch of games we're talking about, Oregon State and Oklahoma State. That game going to be on Friday night, LSU and Texas. And Nicholas Thompson, glad to have you, man. Glad to have you on the chat with us. It's been a while for you, too. So always happy when you're able to join. The same for Jeff Q, who just joined in on us right there. So, Jeff, we'll jump to your question here in a bit. Of course, as always, as we're taking your calls, we're not just going to disregard the chat. If you can't call in or you don't want to call in, we will still be answering your questions and your comments in the chat. So make sure you still stay active in there. A lot of the times you guys argue amongst each other, and it's a lot of fun for me to watch as I'm on a call with somebody. So that being said, we've tackled all the housekeeping. You know our schedule. You know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe. Go to the website. Sign up for the newsletter. Sign up for the expert picks. All that good stuff. But now we're going to take some calls. And like I said, this live stream will run for about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. And we're going to try to limit you guys to about 5 minutes per call, because at times we have had very, very good discussion, but very long discussion that prevents others from jumping in. So here we go. If you guys are ready, I'm ready. Here's the number to start calling in, and we will, of course, take anything and everything college football as we get ready for week 1. 901-297-4545. That is the number to call in. And Comic Dude 45 coming in at the perfect time. Super happy to have you, man. As always, I actually just gave you a shout out here a second ago talking about guys that are always consistent. We're always happy to have on the chat. Glad you're able to make it as well. And I hope things are going well up at Rutgers. Getting prepped for week 1, I assume, up against UMass. DM and I have already kind of talked about that a little bit. Bunch of bad stats for Rutgers that maybe can be, flipped around in week 1 against UMass. So fingers crossed on that. Hopefully going to snap the nation's longest losing streak at 11 straight losses for the Scarlet Knights. So they need a very big improvement and a very big performance in week 1 against UMass, which isn't that big of an opponent, but hopefully they'll take care of business. Yeah, so McD, Rutgers is a 15.5-point favorite in that game. I can tell you right now, that is not something, that is not a pick, that is not a game that we're going to have in our expert picks. I hate to say it. That's not going to be a game. I'm too nervous to put any money and to put my confidence on that. And I'll throw one in there for you, Comic Dude. But that's not one that's going to be in there for now, because that's a very risky bet for a Rutgers team that should improve, going up against a Massachusetts team that's depleted, but obviously a lot of unknowns there and a lot of uncertainty there as well. So we won't worry about that. Alex Kidd, awesome, joining the chat. Glad to have you. This guy right here, I'll tell you what, Alex, I really appreciate all of the predictions that you're throwing out on all of our videos as well. This guy, like me, has gone through pretty much he's slowly working his way through every single one of our prediction videos and leaving his own prediction for that. So glad to have you on here, and keep up those predictions yourself, man. Great work. So I knew this one was coming. Emperor of Rome, great question, and always bring in the great questions, always the tough questions, but the good ones. Thoughts on Andrew Luck retiring? We just got a call. I'm going to make sure that didn't still work. I'm going to take your question, Emperor of Rome, but I'm going to take this call, put him on hold for a second. All right. Was that Nicholas that we got?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. I want to put you on hold for 1 second while we answer this question. We'll get to you in one bit.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so that's Nicholas Thompson on the line. We'll make sure to definitely get to him. But great question, Emperor of Rome. Thoughts on Andrew Luck retiring? I tell you what, if you guys watched college football this past Saturday, the Miami-Florida game, I was watching the game, and for a split second, the breaking news came across the screen, and it said Andrew Luck is retiring from the Indianapolis Colts. And then it went away. And usually the breaking news stuff stays up there for a while. It popped up and went away. And it just took me by surprise. I didn't think it was real. I mean, someone had to have screwed up. I'm very shocked, and I'm sad to hear that Andrew Luck's retiring, because he was a good quarterback. That's the thing. Not only was he a good quarterback, he was a good person. You know, there are some quarterbacks out there, some players across the board, college, NFL, any sports, where they don't have very good character. Andrew Luck had good character. He was a good person. He was a good player. But I do not blame him for retiring at only 29 years old. The mental toll he said that it was taking on him obviously was way too much to bear. The guy's battled injuries for the majority of his career. So not only is he taking a mental toll, but he's taking a physical toll, and as many football players do. But I hated to see that for him to leave so early. But once again, I don't blame him. He had about an 8-year career in the NFL, 7-year career in the NFL. A lot of those were barred by injuries, weren't as successful as they could have been. Do I think they ever would have won a Super Bowl? I don't think so. Not with teams like the Patriots and the Steelers, and at times the Ravens, and teams like Broncos in their prime in the AFC. They probably would never have gotten there. But upset to see that. More upset at the Colts fans who booed him as he walked off the field at Lucas Oil Stadium for the last time. I know it was a preseason game, but to see those fans boo him like that after making what was arguably one of the toughest decisions of his entire life, after everything that he did for that franchise, even though he was injured a lot, everything that he did for that franchise, trying to become the heir to Peyton Manning, to boo him like that, people don't understand how difficult of a situation he was put in, how difficult of a decision that was in. I hate that he did that so close to the season as well, but I don't think that was on his mind of retiring back in April. I think this was something that, as the season approached and as he continued to battle more injuries, that he decided to end it, and I don't blame him. But it made me very angry. Emperor of Rome, you're saying the same thing. It made you angry as a Titans fan. So even as a rival in your own division, you can't help but respect Andrew Luck and be angry at the way they treated people. That reminded me a lot of how I believe it was the Raptors fans cheered when Kevin Durant went down with an injury in the NBA Finals. It was classless. It was ridiculous. You don't have to like the guy, but show a little bit of class, show a little bit of heart, because we're all humans here. Everybody's got these emotions and these things that they're going through, and we're going to sit there and boo this guy that made the most difficult decision of his entire life, gave up a passion, gave up his life. I mean, that was his life. Football was his life, his passion, and he gave it up, and we're going to sit there and boo him. Wasn't like he was a bad quarterback either. He was good. So very upset about that. Hate to see him go. Was a great quarterback. Was kind of I would say one of the better quarterbacks, young quarterbacks taking over from as many of the older guys are kind of moving their way out. But it is what it is, and hopefully with Jacoby Brissett, the Colts can kind of pick up that success and try to remain a playoff team in 2019. So we're going to wait and see how that all plays out. All right, so Nicholas, I'm sorry I had you on hold for so long. How's it going, man?
It's going good, man.
All right, so what's on your mind? What you want to talk about? Where are you calling from, by the way?
I'm calling from Arkansas, bro.
Arkansas. That's even better. That's where I'm at. What part?
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. All right, perfect. Well, we're up here in Jonesboro at ASU, so both Arkansans here. So I like to hear.
That's cool, man.
So what you got on your mind?
I got a question. I'm a Georgia Bulldogs fan.
Okay.
Have been for a long time. I believe we are going undefeated. I believe we're going to steamroll the East like we always do. We're going to blow out Vanderbilt. I saw the Miami and Florida game, and it looks to me that we're going to steamroll Florida again because that was just a terrible, terrible game. Damon is overrated. Sleeping Friends is overrated. I just don't see him coming in the East this year, man.
Well, East-wise, no. I don't think there's any team. The only team that had a chance to or has a chance to beat Georgia in the East is Florida and maybe Missouri. But you get to host Missouri, Florida, of course, being played in Jacksonville. And you're right. Florida looked very, very unimpressive, very uninspired. Had the season opener been against Georgia, for Florida, it would have been a bloodbath, no doubt in my mind. But one thing that I did see that made a very good point was last year Florida at the Swamp, and not to dog Kentucky, but lost to Kentucky I think it was 27-16 at the Swamp, and they looked very uninspired, very unimpressive in that game. And after that, they still finished the season number 7 in the country, and with that dominating win over Michigan in the Peach Bowl. So not to say that they're going to beat Georgia, but I think a lot of people are very quick to jump to conclusions. One thing that we do have to keep in mind is that at the beginning of the season, every team, regardless of who it is, Alabama, Clemson, probably even Georgia at times, I'm sure against Vanderbilt, will struggle, will have issues that need to be addressed, and teams will continue to get better as the season progresses. And I think that's something that Florida did last year against Kentucky. They struggled, they lost, and they were able to pick it back up. Only slipped up 2 more times to Georgia and Missouri. I'm not saying Georgia is going to beat or lose to Florida, but I do think that Florida will continue to improve and will make that game much more competitive than people are thinking it's going to be right now.
Man, I'm looking out for Tennessee. I think Tennessee got a real chance of beating them this year. Yeah. I know it's in the Swamp, but I just got this hard feeling that Jalen Pruitt's going to get at least his first win. Against Florida and the Swamp. Yeah, I got a feeling, man.
You know, it's possible. Look, anything's possible in college football. I'm not feeling that win. I know you don't want to hear, but more people think that Tennessee's big win of the season could come against Georgia at Neyland Stadium.
No, that ain't happening.
You had to think about it for a second, but no, I don't think it's going to happen either. But I think that I would bet more money right now on Tennessee winning that game against Georgia at home than Tennessee going on the road to Florida and beating them in the Swamp. I know Kentucky did that last year, but Tennessee I just don't think is there yet. They're a bowl team. They're a 6-win, maybe 7-win team in my opinion, but maybe not enough yet with Garantano to still exploit that Florida secondary, because the Florida secondary is still good. I don't think people understand that. Jaron Williams at Miami did not really take any shots deep across the middle or deep down the field that really tested that Florida secondary. They were testing them on short little screen passes and slants across the middle. So let's see how everybody else fares against that.
Florida basically keeping them in the game, man. They just kept making penalties after mistake after mistake. How do you throw the ball with 4 seconds left in the fourth quarter? You throw a pick 6, I'm looking like, damn, what are you thinking? That is the most stupidest player I think I've ever seen.
Right. Yeah. I think that's what everybody was saying. Like I said, I wasn't even I'm not a Miami fan. I'm not a Florida fan. But when I saw Felipe Franks drop back to pass up 4 with like 4 minutes left in the game, I screamed. I was like, no, because that's not what you do. Florida was running the ball the entire game and decided to try to get cute and try to get Felipe Franks some extra stats to try to pass the ball with that much time left in the game. It was an idiotic call. I don't know what was going through Dan Mullen's mind in those final 5 minutes. Maybe it was the heat. I don't know. Maybe the heat got to him, but it was a terrible, terrible play call. One that I know all Florida fans just probably fell to their knees when it happened. But it was one of the wildest games and one of the wildest finishes I've ever seen in a while. But back to your original question, as for Georgia, I think they run the table in the East. That we have them running the table in the East. Your only problem is going to come with teams out of the West. And right now you're facing Auburn on the road, Texas A&M at home, and a potential date against Alabama in the SEC title game. And I think right now I have you falling to Auburn on the road. But if you get past that, if you run the East like I think you will, and you get past Auburn, I do believe that you finish undefeated.
The one thing I got, man, I just found out today, DeAndre Swift is injured again. Kirby Smart didn't really say much about it. He just said it was an upper body injury.
Right.
And I don't know if they're going to play in the Vanderbilt game or not. But that's one thing that really concerns me because we need him to be up. I know we got Zamir White, and I can't wait to see Zamir White. I heard he is a beast.
Yep.
And he's going to be a real playmaker for us, but our million concerned about Swift staying healthy.
No, you're exactly right. Well, and you think about it, for those of you out there that don't know, Georgia's wide receiver core is fairly depleted. I mean, it's a brand new core of wide receivers that Jake Fromm is going to have to build chemistry with. DeAndre Swift, especially behind that very veteran offensive line that Georgia has, was going to be the workhorse for the Bulldogs this year. And he's not out for the season, but health, as you mentioned, is a concern. He's hurt now. I think you can afford to hold him out of the Vanderbilt game. I'm not too worried about Vanderbilt upsetting you in that one, with or without Swift. But it is something to keep an eye on. And if he does go down, it's going to be a major blow to this Georgia offense that could maybe struggle a little bit in the passing game. And if they lose him for a while, they got to break in some new running backs, as you said. They might be beasts. They might have a lot of potential. I do believe that, but it's still much different to see them in some real game action.
What's your take on Auburn this year? You think if Oregon beats Auburn, you think Gus Malzahn's on the hot seat?
Gus Malzahn's already on the hot seat. If he falls to Auburn, or if he falls to Oregon, then the seat is just going to get even hotter. And I can promise you that if they fall to Oregon, they're not going to go on the road and beat Texas A&M. They're not going to beat, in my opinion, Alabama. So I have them losing to Oregon right now, and I do believe that if that's the case, Gus Malzahn will be fired at some point this season. They might give him the entire season. I don't think they're going to fire him after the Oregon game, but the seat's going to be flaming. It will be on fire, and he's going to pretty much have to find a high-quality win, whether that's against Georgia, Alabama, maybe on the road against Texas A&M or LSU. Somebody he's got to beat somebody to solidify and get his name off the hot seat just for a little bit. So,
were you surprised he went with Bo Nix instead of Joey Gatewood?
Yes, I think a lot of people were surprised. That was obviously a big quarterback battle between Gatewood and Nix. I think a lot of the Auburn faithful may have wanted Nix. I think they thought maybe he was going to be a better option and better fit Malzahn's system. But Gatewood, to me, seemed like the better man for the job, at least in week 1 versus Oregon. And then maybe after that you can reevaluate. But he went with Nix, and it's going to be interesting to see how he goes up against this Oregon defense that is certainly not getting enough attention.
That's going to be a good game, though. But thank you for taking my call, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for calling in. All right, so that was Nicholas talking some Georgia football and switching over a little bit to the Auburn side of the football with a big game coming up against number 11 Oregon kicking off on Saturday night. That game huge for both teams, much like last year's game was between Auburn and Washington. Huge for both teams. This one bigger, not because Auburn is necessarily a playoff contender, more so because Gus Malzahn is on the hot seat and desperately needs this win, while Oregon, on the other hand, could be a potential dark horse college football playoff contender, and a win over a top 16 SEC team would be a huge boost to their resume if they can run the table in the Pac-12. So a huge Saturday night showdown on top of a lot of big games that we've got coming over these next 5 days. I'm going to go back through the chat here for a second. Prince, 6'1". Man, it's been a while, man. I tell you what, it's been a while since we've seen you in one of these things. So glad you're able to join us today. And it's right. Follow Prince's lead. He's like the leader, man. I tell you, when he gets in here, he takes control. Go smash that like button. Help us out. That helps out our analytics, helps us out a lot. So definitely go smash the like button. Already got 12 likes, and hopefully we can get it up to some more. Or he says 12 people watching, should be 12 likes. He's exactly right. We've only got 8. So let's get it up to at least 12, if not more. So Prince, thank you for joining us, man. Always happy when you're here with us. DM, he's got a new rule for us. If an unranked team beats a ranked team, they switch ranking positions. How's that for ranking madness? Well, I tell you what, if that's the way things worked, you'd have teams like, for example, DM, let's take this for example, your team. You take Rutgers. They upset a team like Ohio State. You could have Rutgers up there at number 4 in the country. I think it'd be phenomenal. It'd be insane. Right? No, it's definitely not right. But that would be a whole lot of fun. It would be definitely very intriguing. And, you think about it. Imagine what your top 4 could be by the season's end if a couple of teams snag a few upsets. Just imagine what that top 4 could look like. Imagine what the top 15 could look like with all the upsets that we're going to see over the course of this season and teams just switch rankings every single time. Assuming they're unranked. Even if they're ranked, you got a number 16 team beats the number 11 team. Auburn beats Oregon. Switch them. Auburn's number 11, and Oregon falls a little bit. That would be something. But we should play that out fantasy-wise. Like fantasy football. We can do that, man. But I love all the what-if scenarios. Going back through the chat here, let's see. Deep Barat, yes, we are taking calls. Like I said, we're going to limit it to about 5 minutes per person, trying to at least. Can't go for too long because this stream will be relatively shorter than we've had in recent days just because, of course, we got college. Unfortunately, it's not summer anymore. Hurts for me. The only bright side is that we've got football coming in 2 days. That's the only thing that's getting me through this first semester is that we've got college football coming up. So. But as many of you know, we are at the brand new Gridiron headquarters, Emperor of Rome, dubbing it that back at our original headquarters, and I loved it. The name stuck. So this is going to be your new headquarters for the next semester. Every now and then we'll have a couple extra videos, a couple special videos from the original place, but this is where we've got it for the majority of the college football season. And I love Gabriel Channing. He would use Ohio State for an example. Yes, I would, because I absolutely hate Ohio State. God, God, I hate the Buckeyes. Come on. No, we don't have any biasness here. I used Ohio State because it was the Big Ten. Ohio State, arguably the best team in the Big Ten. So we use them going up against Rutgers. We've got a call from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Let's see who we've got on the line right now.
One. To send a voicemail, press 2.
All right, perfect. Trey, was that you? Is that who I heard on the line?
Yep.
All right, guys, we got Trey Drew. What's going on, man? Good to hear from you.
Nothing much. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing great. So you just said you wrapped up your first game against Samford, is that right?
Yeah, we went down there, gave them a little taste of what it's like to play ball.
That's what I like to hear. I actually did watch bits and pieces of that game, and y'all definitely stuck it to them. So that's what we like to see.
Yeah, for sure. But I just want to talk about the Big Ten a little bit.
Okay.
Like, who do you think? I didn't watch the prediction video. Who do you think is going to pull it out? Michigan?
Who do I have winning the Big Ten?
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now we do have Michigan winning the conference. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think about Nebraska?
So Nebraska, that is the mystery, man. I tell you what, you talk to a certain group of people, and they've got them doing extremely well. Some even winning the Big Ten. You talk to another group of people, and they've got them going 6-6 to 8-4. Us personally, to the hate of a lot of people, we have them going 10-2. We're pretty high up on Nebraska right now, and a lot of people don't want to jump on that hype. But if you do the research and you look at the schedule, a 9 or 10 win season is very, very possible for Scott Frost and the Cornhuskers this season.
And one more question I had is, what power ground do you think is going to secure that New Year's Six? I'm thinking Cincinnati this year. I think they're looking pretty good.
Yeah. So when we did our college football playoff predictions, and New Year's Six bowl game predictions, we did all those games. We actually still have Central Florida going to a New Year's Six bowl game, and we have that as a very intriguing matchup with Brandon Wimbush at UCF going up against Notre Dame. I think we have them in the Cotton Bowl. So the two former teams, or Brandon Wimbush facing his former team in a New Year's Six bowl game. But on your Cincinnati take, that was kind of like our second option. I think we had them going, I think it's 9-3. I think we actually had them beating Central Florida in the American Athletic. It's just a matter of Cincinnati having a much more difficult schedule than Central Florida does, and that's why we're giving them the edge over the Bearcats. But their team, like you said, is so talented. Luke Fickell's got this team ready to go. A fantastic end to last year, like 11 wins, I think. Brings back one of the best offenses in that conference. I think they do beat UCLA week 1, and I do think they give Ohio State a run for their money when they face off in Columbus. But I just don't know if the schedule works out well enough for them. Say that again. I haven't beaten UCF. I have them beating Central Florida in the regular season, but just because the way the schedule works out, if you take a look at Central Florida's schedule outside of that Cincinnati game versus a Cincinnati schedule, especially in conference play, versus Cincinnati's schedule in conference play, Central Florida owns the advantage by a long shot. Much more favorable. Their biggest games are at home outside of that Cincinnati matchup, and that's why we've got the Knights getting the edge over them and winning the American Athletic, or at least just making an appearance in the conference championship game.
All right, no doubt. And last question I got for you: do you think Utah State will be Wake's preferred Friday?
Say it again.
Do you think Utah State is going to beat Wake on Friday?
Utah beats BYU, or did you say Wake beats Utah State?
Do you think Utah State can beat Wake?
Utah State beats Wake. All right, I couldn't hear the last part. Yeah, no, I do not. I don't think Utah State will beat Wake Forest. When we did our prediction video, we mentioned that that's going to be a very difficult test for the Demon Deacons just because of how well Utah State did last year. But if you look at the research and if you look at the way the two teams stack up, not only is Wake Forest hosting that game, yes, Jordan Love returns for Utah State at quarterback, but it's Jordan Love and an offensive lineman. That's all they've got back on offense, along with a brand new head coach, because Matt Wells left to go take the Texas Tech job. And Gary Anderson, yes, technically isn't new. He formerly coached at Utah State, but he is new for this season. I just don't see many of the things adding up, especially in week 1, adding up to a win over a Wake Forest team that should win anywhere from I'm thinking 6 or 7 games in 2019. So I don't think they win that game, but expect it to be close. I mean, Utah State nearly beat Michigan State last year on the road. So I could expect a very close battle once again against another Power 5 opponent.
No, good talking to you.
Hey, you too, man. Hey, good luck for the rest of the season.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. All right, so that was Trey Drew once again taking the beating to Samford at Youngstown State. Mr. Rizzo, Youngstown was money this week. Yes, they were. Yes, they were. And, of course, if you don't know, Bo Pelini, the former Nebraska head coach, is the head coach at Youngstown State. And I personally would love to play for him. A very fiery head coach, a passionate head coach. So he's a lot of fun to watch. I'm sure Trey can attest to that as well. I mean, so I personally loved it at his time at Nebraska. Didn't do the best at Youngstown last year, but obviously off to a great start now in 2019. Taylor Lewis, how do you call in? I'm going to put the number back in the chat. Kind of gets lost as people keep typing, which is to be expected. But 901-297-4545, that is the call-in number to get a little conversation in about some college football. So once again, Super pumped to have everybody on here on the chat right now. Matt Luffman, if you're still on, I didn't overlook your messages talking about Tennessee. Tennessee is good on the road compared to home. We beat Auburn on the road last year and South Carolina if the touchdown wasn't taken away for unsportsmanlike conduct. He believes that Tennessee is more likely to beat Florida on the road than they are at home. Felipe is bad under pressure, hence the Kentucky and Miami game will have the advantage. So that all remains to be seen. We'll wait and play that by ear. So they did fare well on the road last year. I do expect Tennessee to improve this season, no doubt in my mind. I genuinely do. Enough to beat Florida, though. I don't know about that. I will say this, though. I will say this about Florida. Because right now, that's the only team we can really talk about. We can talk about Florida, Miami, Arizona, and Hawaii. Those are really the four teams trying to get in there right now. And we got another call right now. We're going to put them on mute for 1 second, and we're going to keep talking about Florida. All right, Deep Barat, we're going to put you on hold for 1 second, man.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, let me respond to this message real quick, and we'll jump back on it. But as for Florida, 1 second here. All right, got that taken care of. So, as for Florida, Felipe Franks, someone said, I can't remember who it was an analyst out there, saying that there's a difference between cockiness and confidence. And I tell you what, Felipe Franks rushes into the end zone to take the lead for Florida. His lone rushing touchdown of the night. Gets up, he's hyped. I get it, you just took the lead back. It's been a rough night, it's been a back and forth game. Gets up there, starts pointing into the camera, mouthing off. And then you throw an interception with 4.5 minutes. You barely escape Miami because it was nearly your fault. Keep in mind, you cost them 3 turnovers. You couldn't make up your mind on a read option, cost them a fumble. Didn't have the best pitch outright. Guy couldn't secure the ball, another fumble. 2 interceptions, one because you overthrew a guy. What else is new? And the other one is because you threw it right to Miami. And then the game's over and you punt the ball into the stands and you do a victory lap around the stadium and you're high-fiving people. There's nothing wrong with being excited. There's nothing wrong with being excited. And excited for a win, excited for the comeback and the battle that you had. But have a little class, have a little sportsmanship, and have a little class and common sense to realize I'm not that good. And I nearly cost my team the game. I got booed at my home stadium last year. I've got some crap to work on. Yeah, Felipe Franks is pretty bad until proven otherwise. Had his moments against Miami, but not nearly enough for a veteran quarterback who's entering his junior season in year 2 under Dan Mullen's offense and couldn't go up against what was a depleted Miami secondary. Good luck against Georgia's defense and the rest of your SEC slate. Ridiculous. Players like that is what drive me nuts. We got Deep Barat on the line. No, we don't. He got disconnected. That's okay. They'll call back. Well, them call back. Apparently, he got disconnected for some reason. So, Deep Barat, if you're still out there, call back. Our good man Ryan, if you're listening right now, give us a call back. There's Deep Barat. Right on cue. Deep Barat, you there?
Yep. How's it going, man?
Doing great, man. How you doing?
Pretty good. Very excited. The season's finally coming up, you know.
I think we're all pretty psyched. Yeah, I mean,
a long and tiring off season.
Very long and tiring, very boring off season, but we've got 5 straight days of college football coming up, and I don't think any of us could be more excited.
Oh, absolutely. So a couple of quick comments that I want to hear your thoughts. throughout the course of the offseason, which I'm not surprised. I think what ended up happening was the media and a lot of neutral spectators, you could say, columnists, journalists, they were watching the off-season camp for Texas, and they were very impressed by what they saw, particularly the work of the long, tall wide receivers, and also Ellinger at QB. I think he's going to be outstanding. So this brings up an interesting kind of point where, I personally think that that's probably the most interesting game these next couple of weeks. But where do you see that game, the grander picture of things? And do you think a loss to either team really matters that much?
Yeah, so I think
a close loss.
Right, of course, assuming it's close. Well, it matters when you look at each team's schedule. Obviously, LSU has a much better strength of schedule than Texas, and that's just SEC. I mean, LSU is going to face teams like they obviously have Texas on their schedule. They still have games against Alabama, Auburn. I think they're playing Florida, if I'm not mistaken. So they have everybody on their schedule to boost that strength of schedule for LSU. That a loss to Texas, if they run the table and go 11-1, which I think if they lose to Texas, they won't run the table because they still would have to beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. You're right, wouldn't matter that much. Same can be said for Texas. There's no way the committee would leave out a one-loss Texas team that not only beats Oklahoma in the regular season, but more than likely beats Oklahoma again in the Big 12 championship game. So it doesn't matter in that sense, but it matters for both teams in the sense that the room for error is gone. If Texas and LSU, the winner of that game, gets the win, they have a opportunity to lose to another good team. If Texas beats LSU and falls to Oklahoma in the regular season, okay, that's their one loss, and that's a respectable loss. Same for LSU. You beat Texas, you fall to Alabama, there's your one loss. It's to a good team. But for either team, they lose in this Texas LSU game, they fall again in the regular season, their playoff hopes are done. Because I don't see the committee putting in a 2-loss Texas team, regardless if they win the Big 12 or not. Same can be said for LSU. I mean, we've never seen a 2-loss team make the college football playoff, and I really don't think that would change now.
Yeah, absolutely. And more interestingly, I personally am fascinated by the fact that the betting line has changed throughout the offseason. Personally, I don't really care that much, but I think it's one of those games that you really can't predict. I mean, I think either team can really win this game.
I agree. I think this is a fairly evenly matched game, and when you put it down on paper, which that there's a very good chance, almost 100% or 99% chance that we're going to have that be our game of the week analysis for week 2, and we'll really break that down in deeper detail, LSU and Texas. But obviously, LSU owns one of the best defensive back cores in the secondaries in the entire nation. But Texas has a great quarterback, one of the best in the nation, and it's Sam Ellinger, and obviously owns home field advantage, and with it being in Austin. So when you really weigh both teams and both pros for both teams and both cons for both teams, it equals out, I think, to fairly much the two teams being equal, or either team maybe having just the slight edge, but there's not a drastic edge for either team in this game. And I really don't think – I think a lot of people think this game is going to be like the Miami-LSU game last year, where LSU walked in there as kind of underdogs to number 8 Miami and just annihilated them. And I really don't think that's going to be the case this year.
Yeah, and more interestingly as well, I don't think that I personally don't think that Florida should be ranked, and not ranked, but like top 10 ranked is what I meant. Like, it should be ranked on the top 10 after this last game. What are your thoughts?
I expect Florida to drop from 8th to at least 10th, if not more, maybe outside 12, 13. But once again, what people have to realize, is Florida, as uninspiring and as unimpressive as that victory was, Miami was not a bad team. It would be different if Florida had played like that against an FCS opponent, or if they had played like that against a Group of 5 opponent. And not to dog on the FCS or Group of 5, but there is something to be said for that. Miami was not a bad team, and obviously the mistakes are a cause of concern. But once again, I think you look at any team across the nation this next couple 5 days, you're going to see some of the top teams in the nation commit some very stupid and just bad mistakes, as many teams will do, trying to work out any problems that they have early on in the season. And now at the beginning is the time to do that. But I think Florida needs to drop out of the top 10 for now until they can prove us that, yeah, Miami was a tough opponent. We were trying to work out some issues. Once we get to SEC play, we're going to dominate. So if I were voting, I'd vote them down from 8th to 12th. That's where I would put them.
Yeah, that's fair. What are your thoughts on Auburn this weekend? Auburn, Oregon.
Yeah, and we'll make this the last question because I know we got a couple other callers coming in, and like I said, we're going to try to keep it to 5 minutes or so. But as for Auburn, Oregon, this game, we got to go to call right now. Hold on, let me answer that. All right, 1 second, man. We'll answer your call in 1 second.
Okay.
All right, you're still there?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So to finish up your question about Auburn, Oregon, I can't remember what the line is right now, and that's certainly going to be a game. For those of you that have signed up for the expert picks and are still listening, that's one that will be on there. I'm not going to tell you who we're taking yet, but I think the spread's Auburn by like 3.5. And I can tell you that it's going to be a very, very close game. And you look at the game once again on paper, you've got Auburn boasting one of the best defensive lines in the entire nation, going up against Oregon, who has one of the most experienced offensive lines in the entire nation. Oregon absolutely owns a quarterback advantage with Justin Herbert over Bo Nix, a freshman who's going to be getting his first start with the Tigers. But last year I picked Washington to be Auburn. I thought Washington looked a lot better, had more experience, and it was a close game, 21-16. But Auburn ended up getting the win. So Gus Malzahn tends to do well under pressure. That's why I don't think this is going to be a runaway win for Oregon. Nor do I think it's going to be a runaway win for Auburn, because this is a very, very talented Oregon team that could be a college football playoff contender. So expect this game to more than likely be the best game of Saturday night, and rightfully so, the only game between two ranked teams.
Yeah, makes sense. Alrighty then. I know you're doing more live shows later on, right?
I'm sorry?
You're doing more live shows later on, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So please call back in on the next one. We'll have if you haven't signed up, Deep Barad, I'll tell you what, if you sign up for our newsletter out there, I mean, no charge or anything like that. If you sign up for that, every week we're going to put out a weekly schedule for our posting schedule, and that's going to have what time our live streams will be and what day those will be. So you can always stay tuned for those. And, we'll have plenty more over the course of this season.
Sounds great. All righty, man. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling in.
Bye.
All right. That was Deep Barat. And now we've got Ryan on the line. Ryan, are you still there?
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. How's it going, Ryan?
Good, how are you?
Doing great, man. What's on your mind?
I was just wondering what you think about Hicks getting the start over Starkville.
Over at Arkansas?
Yes.
So good question. Ryan, if you don't mind me asking, where are you calling from?
Russellville, Arkansas.
Russellville, Arkansas. So we got I assume that's Arkansas Tech down there, right?
Yeah,
Wonder Boys down Arkansas Tech, and a Razorback fan calling from Russellville. That's what we like to hear. But that was one of the more intriguing quarterback battles in the SEC by far, and there weren't many. Obviously, Auburn was the big name because Auburn is technically a contender, if you want to call them that. But Chad Morris made the decision to start Ben Hicks, who he coached at SMU a couple years ago, over Nick Starkville, who has SEC playing experience, limited, but a little bit of SEC playing experience at Texas A&M, a guy that he believed was obviously better than Tate Martell and better than Kellen Mond, who is now the starter at A&M under Jimbo Fisher. I personally believe, Ryan, that I think Nick Starkville should have gotten that starting job. I think Nick Starkville is the best quarterback on Arkansas's roster right now.
Should he get the start for Ole Miss, since he has that? It's not much, but it's better than no SEC experience. And, Arkansas is not going to be probably hot in the SEC field. So that's probably a must win if we want to have any shot at going to a bowl.
I fully agree. If you look at Arkansas' schedule, there are not many surefire wins on there. Their 4 non-conference games should be fairly easy. Should be. We said that last year, and Arkansas only won 2 of them. But they should win their 4 games. Ole Miss is crucial for the Razorbacks. They get that 5th win. They only have to beat one more upset. They could come against Kentucky or Mississippi State. But I will say that assuming Arkansas takes easy care of Portland State, that's their season opener. Assuming they take easy care of them, you will see Ben Hicks play. You will see Nick Starkel play, and you might see other quarterbacks play like John Stephen Jones, the grandson, of course, of Jerry Jones, Dallas Cowboys owner. And I think it's going to be, unfortunately, very similar to what happened for the Razorbacks last year. Chad Morris gave Cole Kelly the start in the season opener, and all the quarterbacks played in that Week 1 win over Eastern Illinois. They then went on the road to Colorado State, where they blew an 18-point fourth-quarter lead, but saw, once again, Cole Kelly get the nod to start. Ty Story get the nod to start because Cole Kelly struggled in the first half against Eastern Illinois, and then Cole Kelly came in the second half of that Colorado State game because Ty Story struggled. So there's another chance that could happen here, where maybe Ben Hicks struggles out of the gate, Nick Starkel comes in, and then Nick Starkel gets the start against Ole Miss. I think he should have been the starter in Week 1. And that's what people have to understand. When the quarterbacks have been announced, when the coaches name their starting quarterback, the battle hasn't ended. The battle never, ever ends, despite the coaches naming a starter, regardless of the game. So I think Starkel, by season's end, if not earlier, if not by that Ole Miss game, will end up being the starter for the Arkansas Razorbacks.
We'll see, I guess. I mean, I just hope that we can, like you said, secure those first 3 or all of the 4 non-conference games and start off 4-0. I mean, it'd be a lot better going into our second SEC game 4-0, especially A&M, because we've always played them close, even when we're not supposed to win.
Oh, no.
We've always played A&M close.
Absolutely. I mean, if Arkansas is 4-0 going into the Texas A&M game, I would be willing to bet that they will end up going to a bowl game. I don't think they're going to beat Texas A&M. You're right. They've been some classic games in recent years. Even the times that Arkansas should not have been competitive, they've given Texas A&M a fight. I mean, as recently as last year, they only lost by 7 points and had a chance to tie it in the final minute. But if they are 4-0, they'll get a win over Western Kentucky in November. That's their 5th win. All I got to do is win one more game. And like I said, that could come against Kentucky. That could come against Mississippi State. Or knowing Arkansas, it'll come against someone they definitely shouldn't be, like a Missouri or an Auburn. So it all remains to be seen, but it's going to be an intriguing season, no doubt, for Chad Morris in his second year on the Hill.
I'm going to flip sides with you here. The NFL, Houston lost their running back to ACL, and Luck just up and retired. And the news broke while he was at the stadium. And should the Colts fans have the right to be upset, or should they respect him for his decision, protecting his body and knowing his limitations? Yeah,
so we actually, earlier in the stream, Emperor of Rome came out and addressed that, asked me that question. We talked about it for a second. But to reiterate what we said at the beginning, Colts fans do not have a right to be angry with Andrew Luck. I do not believe that. They do not have the right to boo Andrew Luck off the field. I'm going to get on a little rant again like I did at the beginning. But they certainly do not have that right there because, like you said, he sacrificed his body every single week during his time in Indianapolis. And there were some seasons and multiple games where he did not play due to those injuries. And that's what happens in football. People get hurt. You're going to get hit. Regardless of the position that you play, you will get hit. And you risk an injury every time you're out there on the field. But Andrew Luck, like I said, was one of the more classier players in the entire NFL. I mean, go watch some of the highlights where he is complimenting these linebackers and these defensive tackles on the hits that they were giving him. Hey, good hit, bud. Oh, that was a great sack. Great work. So for the fans to boo him as he's walking off the field after everything he did for them, giving them some decent years of football after Peyton Manning left, who was obviously arguably the greatest quarterback in Colts history. Some might say Johnny Unitas, some of the older people out there, and that's a different story, different argument. But regardless, they shouldn't be upset. He did everything he could, and I respect any player that has to make that much difficult of a decision to end their career that early because it's not like they're not wanting to play football. They want to be out there. Andrew Luck wanted to be out there, but he made the right decision to protect his body, to protect his health, to protect both physical and mental health, and retire early, which I know is extremely tough for him and the fans, but it's not about the fans. This is a time where the player has to be selfish, and he made the right call.
I completely agree with you, and the fact that they even had the audacity to boo him off from where their football team has not been great in several years, and he brought them some of their greatest moments in a while since basically the Manning era.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your time, man, and as always, go Hogs.
You got it, man. Thank you for calling in, Ryan.
See ya.
All right, so that was Ryan all the way from Russellville. So we've had two Arkansans calling on today. We had, I think it was Nicholas all the way from Jacksonville, and then we just got Ryan in from Russellville. So Walter, he's a Colts fan himself, and he's actually agreeing. He agrees with me. He agrees with Ryan. He's mad at the clueless general manager, Ryan Grigson. He didn't take the offensive line serious or his severely injured shoulder serious. By the time Luck had a good offensive line, it was too late. And obviously, Walter, I'm not a Colts fan, so I didn't pay as much attention to that type of stuff, but I will take your word for it. Never let me down before. But you're right, though. When you draft, when you're pulling players in from free agency, you've got to fit the needs of the team. And you would think that, yeah, when your quarterback's getting hit a little too much, you might want to bulk up your offensive line a little bit. And they tried that. I think they got, Mike McGlinchey or somebody from Notre Dame? You would know, Walter. I mean, a Notre Dame fan yourself. Right? They tried at times, but maybe not hard enough. Jeff Wilson, good to see you. I haven't addressed any of your comments yet, so I apologize for that. But your cousin drafted Andrew Luck in fantasy, and he got Quentin Nelson. I'm sorry, Walter. Quentin Nelson. Two great offensive linemen just got him flipped around. But drafted Andrew Luck, I did the same thing. I drafted him well before he retired, weeks before he retired, but just dropped him in my fantasy league because, he's not going to do me any good now. Border Bob, good to have you. If you're still on the line, always glad when you're on the chat as well. So I'm glad to have you with us today. Jake does sports as well. And Cyclone Mitch, of course, always glad when you're here. Super pumped you're able to make it today. Like I said, it's always good when we've got our regulars on the stream with us. So thank you for joining us and bringing some great content and bringing some great questions to these live streams, guys. It's always appreciated. So we're running close to an hour here. I'm going to put the number out there one more time. We might have time for one or two more calls before we shut this live stream down for the night. I know it's shorter than usual, but like I said, I mean, if you guys saw the to-do list that I have, not only to bring you guys some content, but also for these things called grades, a thing called school, you would not believe it. So we do got to take care of that. Emperor of Rome, during his prime, Luck had the worst team in the NFL around him, in your opinion. Lane making the right decision. You're saying Luck made the right decision. I think we all agree with that. And I wouldn't go as far, Emperor of Rome, to say that he had the worst team in the NFL around him, but he really didn't have much help. He didn't have the best offensive line. His best wide receiver that he had was T.Y. Hilton, and I think at one point Reggie Wayne, if I'm not mistaken, for a little bit, but not very long. T.Y. Hilton was his go-to guy. And obviously, if you've seen the statement that T.Y. Hilton put out there, very emotional, very upsetting for him to have to part ways with his quarterback. So that's obviously a concern. And another thing that just makes me even more angry with Colts fans, if you're one of these Colts fans, we don't even want you on here on the Gridiron Expert. The guys that are telling people that they're going to sell their season tickets, they already have some of them. Getting rid of their season tickets because Andrew Luck retired. What kind of fan are you? What kind of fan are you to sell your season tickets? You know what you are? You're a fair weather fan. That's exactly what you are. Or you're just a follower of Andrew Luck. And if you're a follower of Andrew Luck, then you're not a true Colts fan. If you just follow a player from team to team, my favorite team is the Patriots because of Tom Brady. Oh, Tom Brady left and went to the Detroit Lions. Okay, now my favorite team is the Detroit Lions. No, that's not how it works. The people that sell their season tickets weren't true fans at all, and the Colts are going to be a lot better without them. But it's ridiculous, it's embarrassing, and it's wrong that you're going to sell. I hope the Colts have a phenomenal season. I hope Jacoby Brissett comes out there and plays lights-out football, wins the AFC, goes to the Super Bowl, wins it, and those season ticket fans don't get to go to a single game. That's what I hope. It's ridiculous. You're booing your quarterback when he walks off the field. You're selling your season tickets because your quarterback quit, not because he was just for the heck of it, for a legitimate reason. And you're going to quit. You're a fair weather fan. You think about that. Don't consider yourself a Colts fan. No fan is a fan of any team if that's the way they're going to act, the way they're going to treat not only their players, but their whole franchise, period, whether it's in college or whether it's NFL, or even if it's not even in football. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So that's my take on that. Colts fans should be very ashamed of themselves. Not all of them. You can't group them all together. You can't group all the Colts fans together, but a lot of them should be very ashamed and disappointed with themselves. Jeff Wilson, it was good having you, man. If you're heading out, sorry we weren't going to talk to you too much, but I'm glad you're able to stop by and get to interact in the chat for a little bit. McD Sports 4, glad to have you back just for a little bit at least, probably for another 10, 15 minutes. And I'm glad I can tell that a lot of us, Border Bob, Mike Myrick, DM, everybody seems to agree. I'm glad we're all on the same page here about how the Colts should handle that and the way they're conducting themselves. So it's a wild scenario. We don't see this very often. I hate to see young talent, very talented young talent, retire early. I mean, Calvin Johnson did it with the Lions. Andrew Luck's doing it now with the Colts. He's not going to be the last one either. We don't know who it's going to be, but he certainly won't be the last one. So like I said, we have a couple more minutes left for another call, maybe two, in this live stream, Tuesday night live stream. 901-297-4545. That is the call-in number. Like I said, we'll limit you to about 5 minutes, but we do have a couple calls left in us for the night. Once again, football's kicking off on Thursday, guys. That's just unbelievable to me. Hopefully you have the ACC network so you can watch Georgia Tech and Clemson, reigning national champions. Go check that out. Utah, BYU, obviously the Holy War. That's going to be a big one. And we are getting a call right now, and I will answer everybody else's question in the chat. Absolutely. So DM, I will not forget about you here. And the caller just hung up. So maybe they'll call back. But anyways, am I going to the Arkansas State game this weekend? I actually more than likely will not be able to make that one. I will be at future ones with my own press pass. So that's going to be pretty nice. Not going to lie. Going to be down on the field at times, covering the games. Going to be up in the press box covering the games. So I'm very excited for that. Might get a chance to travel with the team on a couple road games. Arkansas State, as some people may know, big game against Georgia this year. They go to Michigan next year. They go to Ohio State in 2022. They went to Alabama last year. So while Arkansas State will get annihilated in every single one of those games, it's a pretty great experience, great exposure for them, and maybe great exposure for some guys like me that don't get to travel and cover these games. So that fingers crossed on that. But I unfortunately won't be able to go to the game this weekend. Had another family obligation, but it should be a fun one. I'll definitely be keeping my eye on it. Emperor of Rome likes Jacoby Brissett. He thinks with the right coaching he could be a decent starter. Well, you're right. You saw what he did in New England briefly with Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick. You know, he played very briefly when Brady was suspended and Garoppolo got hurt, and it was up to Brissett. The Wolf Pack, as they called it, between Brady, Garoppolo, and Brissett. At times, he did play a little bit for the Colts, and I do think he has a lot of potential. I didn't think he did when he came out of college. When he left North Carolina State, I did not think that he was going to thrive in the NFL. But he's still on a roster, and he's now the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. And I do believe that he's going to put up some decent numbers this year. I don't think people are giving him enough credit. Border Bob, what about the Auburn-Oregon game this weekend? What do you think? So, yeah, that's been a lot of talk. We've been talking about that a lot. And trust me, we will have plenty of analysis on that coming up before the game and certainly after the game, because that is the biggest game of week one by far. But I do think it's going to be a very close game. Border Bob is going to be, I think Auburn's a 3-point favorite, 3.5-point favorite. The game will be close. When you look at it on paper, you've got Oregon's offensive line going up against Auburn's best defensive line maybe in the entire nation. So you've got a very interesting battle in the trenches there. But who owns the edge at quarterback? Now, I'm not saying that's going to determine who wins the game, but who owns that edge? And that's Oregon with Justin Herbert, who's going up against a freshman quarterback in Bo Nix, making his first ever career start on a huge, huge stage. This game will not be a runaway by either team. If any team, Auburn or Oregon, if either team wins that game by more than 10 points, I will be shocked. I will be shocked if Oregon or Auburn wins this game by more than 10 games. But expect it to be very similar to that Pac-12 game we saw last year, Pac-12 SEC between Auburn and Washington, which Auburn escaped 21-16. So this is going to be a fun one. Best game of the weekend by far. The one I'm most looking forward to. Expect it to be very close, but we'll have a lot of analysis on that coming out Thursday and Friday. And, of course, after the game when we do our recap on Tuesday. And, of course, in our expert picks as well, because that's certainly a game that we will have on there. You'll know exactly how I'm feeling about that game if you have signed up for those. Walter saying my advice for T.Y. Hilton is to go up to Jacoby and said, you need a completion, you come to me. I got you. And that could very well be the case, Walter. Honestly, Jacoby Brissett is not as good as Andrew Luck. We know that. Not yet, at least. T.Y. Hilton was Andrew Luck's deep threat. I mean, they had some great chemistry there, some fantastic plays, some huge plays over the course of their career. So, yeah, he's going to – I do feel like T.Y. is going to have to say, hey, look, Jacoby, yeah, you've got some experience. You've played here in Indianapolis. You've played in New England. It's time to start building some chemistry now. If this is the way it's going to be, come to me. I need to be your go-to guy. So if any of you guys need a wide receiver in fantasy, if you don't have one already, pick up T.Y. Hilton. McD Sports 4, biggest potential for an upset this week? Very, very tough question. I don't have the entire schedule in front of me. So I really should take a look at it closer. But I will say one trendy pick is Liberty over Syracuse. And we're getting a call right now. We're going to take this, but of course we'll take the rest of y'all's questions in 1 second. This one could be interesting. Let's see who we've got on the line. Who we have on the line right now? And they're gone. Didn't even hear a word he said. I don't know if y'all caught that. But we got, you get some trolls, you get some people that try to screw around, and that's what happens on these live call-in shows. But wasn't able to ruin anything this time. But McD Sports 4, I don't have the schedule in front of me. I can look. I know Syracuse getting upset by Liberty is a trendy upset pick. And if you guys have seen the video of Hugh Freeze coaching practice from his hotel room, he just dealt with, I think it was a hip surgery or a back surgery or something like that, or some sort of health issue that he was taking a little bit of time off. And he's in his hotel room watching practice on the TV with a walkie-talkie coaching players from the hotel room, which is right next to their stadium. I just found that hilarious to me, but also impressive, the dedication that he showed to this team. A lot of people, I think, would take that time off, give the duties to the assistant coaches. I'll be back in a week. But Hugh Freeze not doing that, giving a second chance at everything after the way things ended at Ole Miss. Let's hope he can take advantage of it and not screw it up. Marshall, 25-25, what do I think about all the Nebraska hype? Well, I'll tell you what, I'm buying into it right now. And I don't think a lot of people like that. I don't think a lot of – here's what I genuinely think happens. Nebraska's getting a lot of hype. And I don't think a lot of people like it because they're scared that's going to happen. That's just my take. Not all people. I'm buying into it right now because I saw what Scott Frost did in a very short amount of time at Central Florida, and I get that is a Group of 5 school, and Nebraska is a Power 5 school in the Big Ten with teams like Wisconsin, Northwestern, and Iowa in their division, and Minnesota, and Purdue, as well as teams like Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, so forth, so on, in the Eastern Division. But this Nebraska team has a lot of talent. They have a great coach. Martinez is back at quarterback. He's going to take an even bigger step in year 2 under Scott Frost's system. The defense is going to be much improved than they were last year. And you saw over the final 6 games of 2018 how much more competitive Nebraska was than they were in those first 6 games of the season. There was a drastic change. You can't say there wasn't. So I'm buying into the hype right now. I see them winning right now at 10-2, maybe 9-3, then maybe they slip up somewhere. I haven't pulled off a big upset against Ohio State, as many people know. And we might reevaluate that depending on how both teams look when they meet up, I think in week 4 or week 5. But regardless, I'm buying into the hype. And I will stick with that hype until proven otherwise. But I have Nebraska making the Big Ten championship game, but falling to Michigan in that Big Ten championship game. Border Bob thinks it's a bunch of hype, and that's perfectly fine. It will take a lot of time to make a huge turnaround, and he thinks they still need more time. And I've always said that I sometimes think coaches hit their stride in year 3 or year 4. But right now, with what Scott Frost is building at Nebraska, with what I saw towards the end of last season, I think that it's hard to believe that you can have a 4-8 team carry some momentum into 2019, carry some momentum into the next year. Well, Scott Frost team can do that. This Nebraska team somehow, some way, is entering 2019 with some momentum after going 4-8. And they return a lot of talent, and they are hungry to win anywhere between 8 to 10 games. I think they can absolutely do that. Emperor of Rome, what is everybody's most unpopular sports opinion? Mine is that I actually like the Bucks' old creamsicle uniforms. Ooh. Wow. All right. The old creamsicle uniforms? Those were impressive. I'll go with that. They're iconic. They're definitely iconic. Nonetheless, regardless, Emperor of Rome, I enjoyed watching them play them. I don't know if I'd go as far and say I like them. That'd be like me saying that I like the Pittsburgh Steelers Bumblebee uniforms, with the prison uniforms, and sometimes I call it with the yellow and black stripes, and that was extremely ugly to me. Or the Packers navy and brown helmets. I like when teams do throwback jerseys, whether it's in college or NFL, but I don't know if I want to see it go back regularly. But I like that opinion. I do like that. And the Marshall 25-25, do I think Georgia Tech has any chance to cover the spread of 36 against Clemson on Thursday night? I can tell you what, that's not more than likely not going to be a game on our expert picks that we release. That come out tomorrow, of course. But right now, I would say no. Or right now, I'm going to say I don't think they can cover. This is a Clemson offense, guys, that put up over 70 points against Louisville last year. And I'm not saying that Georgia Tech is Louisville this year, but I do think Georgia Tech will struggle. They're switching from the option offense to a pro-style offense on the road at Death Valley right after Clemson won the national championship. Brand new head coach. None of this adds up for a great debut for Jeff Collins and the Yellow Jackets. I don't see it happening. And we got our final call here. Whether this is a troll, as you can see, no caller ID, or not, regardless, this is how the live stream will end. So let's see what we can get going. All right, who we have on the line with us?
Clemson number one.
Clemson number 1. Well, he's not wrong. They are number 1 to kick off 2019, and they're facing off against Georgia Tech Thursday night on the ACC network. They most recently launched. So that one wasn't too bad of a troll. As much as we don't like him, at least it wasn't as bad as the first guy that we had in our first ever live call-in show. So not too bad. Definitely not that bad at all. So making sure I'm not missing any more comments here, but I don't think we are. I think we kind of hit everybody here. So, yeah, McD remembers that guy. I think we all remember that guy from the first live call-in show that we had. So, DM, thank you. I really appreciate that. I loved hearing from you as well, so definitely keep in touch. Glad you're able to join us, as well as everybody else. Thank you for joining us today. If you signed up for the newsletter, and even if you didn't, as long as you follow us on Twitter or Instagram or somewhere, even here on YouTube, if you have post notifications on, you will know when we are going live and what time we are going to do so. And my plan for this entire season, guys, is to have a set day and a set time to go live. That way you're never going to miss it, and that way you can know and plan around it if you do want to come in and call in or just join in the chat and watch. So that's going to be our plan for 2019, and it is going to be a heck of a season. It kicks off this Thursday, 5 straight days of college football. You couldn't ask for anything better. I know Joe would have something to say with that, but we're not going to talk about that right now. So you couldn't ask for anything better. 5 straight days, Thursday through Labor Day Monday. Stay tuned for plenty more content leading up until this Saturday. And then, of course, our recap next Tuesday. So, guys, thank you once again for watching. Emperor of Rome DM, Mike Myrick, Ray, Walter, McD Sports 4, Border Bob, everybody else that joined. We appreciate you guys more than you know. Make sure you go sign up for our newsletter. Sign up for the expert picks. They come out tomorrow, but you can sign up at any point over the course of this season. But if you want to get the full effect, you need to sign up between today and tomorrow afternoon. But so make sure you go do all of that. Links in the description below, in the bio. Of course, at our website, thegridironexpert.com. Twitter, Instagram, College Pick'em group, everything you need to know in the description below. Thank you guys so much. We will see you guys next time on our next live stream, and enjoy your 5 days of college football and your very long weekend. You guys have a good night.